Edgar Cayce, often called the Sleeping Prophet, remains one of the most mysterious figures in American history. Born in 1877 in Kentucky, he was a man of humble origins who lived a quiet life as a Sunday school teacher and photographer. But when Cayce entered a trance-like state, his mind appeared to open a door beyond ordinary consciousness. In this altered state, he delivered over 14,000 readings that covered health, spirituality, and the evolution of the soul. Among his most compelling insights was the role of the mind in shaping reality. Cayce taught that the mind is the builder. He believed that our thoughts, whether positive or negative, eventually manifest in our bodies, our relationships, and even our environment. At a time when science had little understanding of psychosomatic illness or the effects of stress, Cayce was already pointing to the deep connection between mental states and physical health. Meditation, for Cayce, was not simply about relaxation. It was a practice of aligning the conscious and subconscious mind with the spirit. He described the human mind as a bridge, a channel that could open to divine wisdom. Through meditation, he believed, people could heal, gain clarity, and even change the course of their destiny. Cayce insisted that the true purpose of meditation was attunement. Just as a musical instrument must be tuned to produce harmony, the mind must be tuned to higher ideals to achieve balance. For him, meditation was both a science and an art, a way of training the mind to listen to something greater than itself. This vision of the mind as a powerful creative force was revolutionary. Decades before terms like neuroplasticity or positive psychology entered mainstream conversation, Cayce was teaching that the way we think literally shapes who we become. His message was both empowering and challenging. If the mind is the builder, then we are responsible for the world we create within and around us. In the next section, we'll explore how Cayce described meditation in detail, the techniques he recommended, and the spiritual dimensions he believed could be unlocked through consistent practice. For Edgar Cayce, meditation wasn't simply sitting in silence or emptying the mind. It was a sacred discipline. He described meditation as the act of turning inward with a clear purpose, to align the self with divine will. It was, in his words, listening to the voice of God within. Cayce believed that the mind had different layers. On the surface was the conscious mind, our daily thoughts, logic, and problem-solving abilities. Beneath it was the subconscious, where memories, emotions, and hidden beliefs resided. And above both was the superconscious, the realm of spirit, the soul's direct connection to God. Meditation, he explained, was the key that allowed these three levels to work in harmony. Unlike modern self-help practices that often emphasize meditation for stress relief alone, Cayce emphasized its spiritual purpose. He taught that consistent meditation could help an individual discover their soul's purpose, why they were born, what lessons they needed to learn, and how they were meant to serve others. His technique was simple but profound. He advised beginning with prayer, focusing not on material desires, but on spiritual ideals such as love, patience, or forgiveness. Then, with deep breathing and stillness, the seeker was to open the mind like a channel, allowing inspiration to flow. Cayce often warned against meditating without a clear spiritual intention, saying that the mind could easily drift into confusion or be misled by selfish thoughts. He also stressed the role of the pineal gland, calling it the spiritual antenna of the body. Long before neuroscience investigated its role in regulating circadian rhythms, Cayce described it as a gateway between the physical and the spiritual. When activated through prayerful meditation, he said, it allowed the soul to tune in to higher frequencies of consciousness. For Cayce, meditation wasn't about escaping the world, but about transforming it. A person who meditated regularly, he said, would become more compassionate, patient, and attuned to the needs of others. In his view, meditation shaped not only health and inner peace, but also the destiny of humanity as a whole. In the next section, we'll uncover how Cayce connected meditation with healing the body, and why he insisted that our thoughts and spiritual practices could directly influence our health and even prevent disease. One of Edgar Cayce's most striking contributions was his insistence that the mind has the power to heal the body. In his trance readings, he often diagnosed illnesses that conventional doctors struggled to explain, and his advice almost always linked the physical condition back to mental or emotional states. Cayce taught that every cell in the body responds to thought. When the mind is filled with fear, anger, or resentment, it sends disruptive signals through the nervous system, weakening the immune response and creating fertile ground for disease. By contrast, when the mind is focused on peace, forgiveness, and spiritual ideals, the body naturally aligns itself toward balance and healing. Meditation, then, was more than a spiritual exercise. It was medicine. He encouraged people to use meditation as a daily practice, not just for calming the nerves, but for directing healing energy into the body. Cayce explained that prayer set the intention, while meditation allowed the body to absorb that intention on a deeper cellular level. In fact, many of his health readings ended with the same advice: keep the mind in tune with constructive ideals, and the body will respond. This was a radical statement in the early 20th century, when mainstream medicine rarely acknowledged psychological influences on health. Yet today, countless studies in psychoneuroimmunology confirm what Cayce intuited. Stress weakens the body, while positive mental states enhance healing. He even described specific conditions where meditation could help. For heart disease, he stressed cultivating patience and reducing inner conflict. For digestive troubles, he urged individuals to meditate on gratitude and trust, releasing anxiety. For chronic pain, he advised meditative focus on forgiveness, suggesting that resentment often lodged itself physically in the joints and muscles. But Cayce always paired meditation with practical action. He believed healing came from a balance of physical care, proper diet, exercise, and spiritual alignment. Meditation was not a substitute for treatment. It was the force that allowed treatment to work more effectively. To Cayce, the act of sitting quietly, aligning the breath, and focusing on a higher ideal was not only spiritual, it was profoundly biological. It gave the body permission to heal itself. In the next section, we'll explore how Cayce described the dangers of misusing meditation, and why he warned that intention and purity of heart were essential before entering this sacred practice. While Edgar Cayce spoke passionately about the transformative power of meditation, he was also careful to issue strong warnings. To him, the mind was not just a tool for healing, it was a force that could be misused if guided by selfish intentions. Cayce often emphasized that meditation should never be practiced casually or with materialistic desires. He believed that the subconscious mind was highly impressionable, and without proper spiritual preparation, individuals could fall into confusion, delusion, or even attract destructive influences. He warned, the mind is the builder, but it can build for good or for destruction. One of his most repeated cautions was about entering meditation without a clear ideal. In Cayce's view, an ideal was not just a thought, it was a spiritual compass, a guiding principle such as love, service, or forgiveness. Without an ideal, he said, meditation could amplify fear, greed, or resentment, turning the practice inward and negative rather than outward and constructive. He also addressed the danger of ego. Some seekers, he noted, used meditation to chase mystical experiences or psychic powers, hoping to gain recognition or control. Cayce strongly discouraged this. He said that the true purpose of meditation was union with God, not personal power. When meditation was used to feed ambition, he warned, it could damage both the mind and spirit. Interestingly, he also spoke about the importance of physical preparation. He recommended that those who meditated should care for their diet, posture, and circulation, An undisciplined lifestyle, he believed, made the body less receptive to higher vibrations. To him, meditation wasn't isolated from daily habits. It was interwoven with how one lived each day. In modern terms, Cayce seemed to anticipate the psychological risks of ungrounded meditation practices. Just as today's mental health experts caution that certain individuals may struggle with intense meditation without proper guidance, Cayce insisted that meditation required discipline, humility, and a pure heart. For him, the dangers of meditation were real, but so were the rewards when practiced with sincerity. It could elevate a soul toward wisdom or trap it in illusions. The choice, he said, depended on the seeker's intention. In the next section, we'll examine how Cayce saw meditation not only as a personal practice, but as a collective force, capable of shaping communities, nations, and even the destiny of humanity. Edgar Cayce never saw meditation as only a private practice. He believed that what an individual does in silence could ripple outward, touching communities, nations, and even the destiny of the entire world. For him, the mind's power was not confined to the individual body. It extended into a larger field of consciousness, a collective web of human thought and spirit. He often reminded people that thoughts are things. They are not invisible whispers that vanish into nothing. They are real energies, shaping the world we live in. Just as fear and anger could spread like wildfire, so too could love, peace, and compassion. When many people meditated with a shared spiritual ideal, Cayce believed their collective focus could create measurable changes in society. In his readings, he encouraged group meditations not only for personal healing, but for global healing. He suggested that when groups gathered with the intention of peace, they could shift the vibration of entire communities. To Cayce, prayer and meditation were not passive acts. They were forces of construction, tools that could strengthen the moral fabric of nations. This vision resonates strongly today, as researchers in psychology and neuroscience have begun exploring how collective practices influence human behavior. Studies on group meditation and mass prayer have suggested subtle but real effects, lowering crime rates in some cases, reducing tension in conflict zones, and increasing empathy among participants. Cayce, speaking decades earlier, seemed to anticipate this scientific curiosity. He also linked global crises to spiritual imbalance. Wars, he said, were not just political. They were reflections of collective greed, fear, and resentment. He believed that if humanity learned to meditate not only for the self, but for the whole, many of these conflicts could dissolve. In his view, meditation was a spiritual antidote to the sickness of division. The idea that each person's meditation mattered gave profound responsibility to the individual. A single mind aligned with peace, he said, was a light in the darkness. 1,000 minds united in prayer and meditation could illuminate the world. In the final section, we will look at Cayce's ultimate legacy, how he believed meditation could guide humanity toward its highest destiny, and what that means for us today. For Edgar Cayce, meditation was not a passing practice or a personal hobby. It was humanity's bridge to its highest destiny. He believed that the world stood on the edge of transformation, and that the key to this change rested not in politics or technology, but in the collective awakening of the mind and spirit. Cayce envisioned a future where meditation would become as common as daily meals, a practice integrated into schools, families, and communities. He foresaw a time when science and spirituality would no longer be in conflict, but would join together, proving that thoughts, emotions, and ideals directly shape health and society. What seemed mystical in his lifetime, he predicted, would eventually become recognized as natural law. He often said that each soul carried a divine purpose, and meditation was the path to discovering it. By aligning thought with higher ideals, by surrendering ego and tuning the mind toward love and service, individuals could fulfill their role in a greater cosmic plan. Humanity, he said, was not destined for destruction, but for evolution, rising to a new level of awareness where cooperation replaced conflict and unity overcame division. Cayce's words still echo powerfully today. In an age of constant noise, division, and distraction, his call to stillness feels more urgent than ever. Meditation, as he described it, is not escape. It is engagement with the deepest truth of who we are. It is the practice of building a world from the inside out. The question is not whether Cayce was right or wrong in every detail of his readings. The question is whether we will take his message seriously enough to put it into practice. If the mind is the builder, then our thoughts today are laying the foundation for tomorrow's world. Perhaps Cayce's greatest legacy is the reminder that change begins within, and that by turning inward through meditation, we are not just healing ourselves, but also participating in the healing of the planet. Edgar Cayce warned us that the mind is the builder, that every thought creates our future. If his message resonates with you, don't let this journey end here. Subscribe to this channel for more hidden wisdom, ancient prophecies, and truths that mainstream voices ignore. Turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next revelation. And before you leave, share your thoughts below. Do you believe meditation can change not only your life, but the destiny of humanity itself? Your voice could be the spark that lights the way for others.